The T100 is back with a bang after its mid-season break with a big matchup between Taylor Knibb, Ashley Gentle and Annie Haug, who'll be coming to Ibiza determined to make up for an unfortunate DNF at the Ironman World Championships. This is the 5th race in this series and it's just become even more important with Dubai becoming the grand final and there being one less race in the series. When the start lists were announced, we had all the contracted athletes racing, obviously excluding Skye Moench and Holly Lawrence, who both withdrew through pregnancy, and Daniela Ryf, who retired. However, over the last few days, Lucy Charles-Barclay, Marjolaine Pierre, Chelsea Sodaro, and the new Ironman World Champion, Laura Philipp, all withdrew. Lucy missed the Ironman World Champs through injury and is prioritising her recovery, while the other 3 are all absent off the back of impressive performances at the Ironman World Championships. For each of those 3, this will be the 3rd race they've missed, which, unless for another reason, means they will not satisfy their T100 contract. I'm interested to see if there's any fallout from this. With those 4 withdrawing, it leaves us with 13 contracted athletes. This group can be roughly split into 3 groups. First, we've got the 3 athletes who are coming off racing the Ironman World Champs in Nice. Now, they're all in slightly different situations. Kat Matthews is the only one who finished, so will have the most fatigue but will be flying high after that podium finish. However, I find it hard to see her contending in Ibiza with what she had to battle through just a few days ago. But credit to her for being the only one who finished the race that is showing up in Ibiza. India Lee didn't have the race she wanted, dropping out in the early stages of the run. She won't have the same fatigue as Matthews, but will need to pick herself up for Ibiza. While Annie Haug will be super fresh after withdrawing 200 metres into the bike after a race-ending puncture. This is probably the biggest change to the race dynamic since last week. Like I'm assuming for Kat, I thought Annie Haug would be out of contention after a long day in Nice, but she's now coming in super fresh, albeit off the back of an Ironman training block rather than specific T100 focus training. She'll be coming to Ibiza looking for redemption and to defend her European Open title from 2023. In the second group, we've got Olympians Flora Duffy and Taylor Spivey making their debut in the T100 series. Both were awarded contracts to race in the series post-Olympics, and Ibiza just became even more important with there being one less race. Their score from this race will be averaged with Las Vegas to form a 3rd score that will count towards the final standings. Then we've got a group of 8 that have raced in the series already this year, including my 2 big favourites, Ashley Gentle and Taylor Knibb, as well as Paula Finley, who's coming off finishing 18th at the Time Trial World Championships. Now, I won't give an overview of all the contracted athletes because we've seen most of them race multiple times already this year, but I want to touch on Duffy and Spivey because for Spivey, this is her first time over the distance, and it's the first time in nearly 2 years for Flora Duffy. Flora Duffy flirted with the middle distance in 2022, racing the US Open and 70.3 Worlds along with the Collins Cup. I think generally people were underwhelmed with her performances, but she came 6th at US Open and 5th at 70.3 Worlds. By no means bad results. I think everyone was anticipating her to come over and contend straight away, given her dominance over short course. But she was stepping up at a time where we're witnessing the emergence of Taylor Knibb and Ashley Gentle as the best middle distance triathletes in the world. At the start of the year, Duffy went on Chasing the Burn and spoke about this period of time. This was when she was struggling with knee problems and she raced through it, but it eventually ended up with her getting surgery. If we look at those 2 middle distance races, she was in contention for the podium coming off the bike, but just lost ground on the run. Maybe this was down to that lingering knee issue, which could have limited her training, perhaps. She's now post-surgery, and despite not medaling at the Olympics, I was impressed with her return this year, and I'm excited to see what she can do over the middle distance now her focus has completely shifted. This will be Taylor Spivey's first middle distance race of her career, and unlike Duffy, since the Olympics, she stepped down in distance rather than focusing on the build for Ibiza. She finished 10th at the Olympics, but did pick up silver with Team USA in the relay. And since then, she's finished in the top 4 of all 3 Super Tri races, including a podium in Chicago. She'll be juggling the 2 series for the rest of the season, and while she's proved herself in Super Tri, T100 will be a completely different challenge. Adapting to the TT bike can take time, and I'm interested to see how she translates to the distance. She's a strong swim biker, but she's recently excelled more in the Super Tri format versus the Olympic distance. I think she's a similar type of athlete to Sophie Coldwell, maybe less aggressive in the swim and bike, but stronger on the run. I think Coldwell's performance in London could be a good indicator for what Spivey will look like. With 3 contracted athletes withdrawing from the series and the 4 new withdrawals from this race, there are 7 wildcard slots on offer. Now, just like in the men's, one of the original wildcards also withdrew. Caroline Pohl is coming off 2 big wins in the Ironman Pro Series at 70.3 Tallinn and 70.3 Zellamsi. She looked like a top 5 threat in this race, but she had to withdraw through illness. She'll get her chance in Las Vegas. So on to the wildcards who'll be racing, and first up is Julie Deron. She's coming off silver at the Olympics, and she won 2 low-key 70.3s earlier this year and was running crazy fast splits that will put her up there with Ashley Gentle and Tamara Jewett as the fastest runners in this field. She just came 3rd at Challenge Beijing behind Paula Finley and Lucy Byram, which maybe showed where she's weakest. It was the first time she was racing on a TT bike and she lost a chunk of time, which could be her downfall in Ibiza. Next up is Sarah Perez-Sala. She'll be the home country favourite and she'll be looking for redemption after a DNF in Miami to start the season. Next is Laura Madsen. She's establishing herself as one of the best young triathletes in the world right now. 3 wins so far this season and 2 more podiums, as well as 9th in San Francisco in her T100 debut. She was unlucky in London with a puncture, and she'll be battling for another top 10 finish in Ibiza. Then we've got Grace Tech. This will be her 3rd T100 race of the year. She's yet to crack the top 10, but she's coming off a brilliant performance at 70.3 Zellamsi, so be riding that confidence into Ibiza. Next is Kaidi Kivioya. She's raced every T100 race this year, putting many contracted athletes to shame, and she's come away with 2 top 10 finishes. She could be last out of the water, so will have her work cut out on the bike and run. Then we've got Lisa Norden. She returned to racing in London and had a solid swim and a solid bike, but struggled on the run, maybe showing the slight lack of training in the lead-in. She's had more time to build back to regular training, so could be on for a better performance here. And lastly is Kate Curran. She got a last-minute call-up and will make her T100 debut in Ibiza. She's targeted the Ironman Pro Series middle distance races so far this year, picking up 3 top 5s, including a podium in Les Sables. She's a strong swimmer and will be in the mix early on, so I'm excited to see what the Brit can do. Starting with the swim, I'm going to break down how I think the packs are going to form, and this could be the largest front pack we've seen in one of the women's races. With Lucy Charles-Barkley out, I'm interested to see who wants to be the one to push the pace. We've seen Taylor Knibb swim with Lucy before, but I'm not sure she wants to be the one driving the pace, and she doesn't necessarily need to be. Taylor Spivey is one of the best swimmers in short course, so we could see her push the pace like Sophie Coldwell did in London, and we'll have to see where Duffy stacks up. She was never able to swim with Knibb and Charles-Barkley back in 2022, but she was super impressive in Paris, so I think it makes sense that she'd be in this group too. Then we've got wildcards Sarah Perez-Sala and Julie Deron. Sala has shown she is a top swimmer and she's led out at these races before. And before Challenge Beijing, I probably wouldn't have had Julie Deron in this group, but she was with Sian Rainsley out of the water and put time into Paula Finley, so I think she could make the back of this group. Then in the chase pack, I've got Simmons, Gentle, Lee and Finley. But the question with these 4 becomes, if the front pack is 5 athletes deep, then can this group also latch on? Simmons and Lee are probably the 2 strongest swimmers, and we saw Simmons follow Knibb at 70.3 wells last year. If they don't latch on, then they'll probably lose in the region of 60 seconds. Then in the second chase pack, I've got the rest of the field, probably 60 to 90 seconds back from that chase pack. The majority of this group swam together in London, so we can probably expect to see the same here. Watkinson and Kivioya are probably the weaker swimmers, so they might be the ones who potentially drop off the back. The bike course is slightly different this year with 2.5 laps and around 500 metres of elevation. Again, I've put together how I think the major groups will form on the road. You already know Taylor Knibb is going to set off like a rocket. She is on another level on the bike. This is where I was interested to see how Caroline Pohl performed. I think she could have given it a good go being the first person to ride with Nib, at least for a bit. I'm keen to see how Duffy stacks up against these other T100 athletes. I doubt she'll be able to follow Nib, but she could be someone to watch on the bike. I've got her in that chase pack with Simmons and Finley, who'll make a dangerous combination if they come out of the water together, and I think Byram will move through the field close to this group like she did in London. She was really impressive in Beijing and seemed to have Finley on the limit on the bike. Since the beginning of the season, I've been saying if we can get India Lee and Imogen Simmons working together on the bike, then I think they'd be a really dangerous combo. Lee has underperformed recently, but seems to be highly motivated for this race and will be keen to bounce back from the Ironman World Champs. I'm hoping to see her ride with this group, something she wasn't able to do in London. Ashley Gentle was able to ride with Simmons for a bit in London, but eventually dropped off the pace. Having a bigger group of athletes with Finley, Duffy and Lee will make it easier to follow the wheel out of the water, but the other athletes won't want her sticking around. So I've got a question mark if she'll be able to hang with this group. Now the bike is key for Julie Daron if she wants to stay in contention. She lost too much time in Beijing, so she'll need to have made some rapid improvement if she's going to be relevant here. If she can stay close to Gentle, then I'd be interested to see them running together. Then further back we've got Laura Madsen. She could look to ride up with Byram, but that may put her on the limit. This gives someone Kat Matthews to ride with, but I'm still unsure how she'll perform off the back of Nice. I expect to see Haug in this group rather than further back like she was in London. She'll need to be if she wants to compete. Then I've dropped Taylor Spivey back. I'm not sure if she's going to have spent enough time on the TT bike to ride with the best women in the world right now. And we'll need to keep an eye on Tamara Jewett and Emma Pallant-Brown, both excellent runners, but have struggled on the bike so far in the T100 series. Taylor Knibb has taken her run to a whole new level over the past 2 seasons and showed that in San Francisco with the 3rd fastest split of the day. So with the lead off the bike I think she'll have, she's going to be very difficult to beat. The fastest runners on the day will be Ashley Gentle, Annie Haug, Julie Daron and Tamara Jewett. Jewett has tended to lose too much time on the bike to stay relevant, but I'm expecting the other 3 to stay within striking distance of the podium, and it could be a really interesting run battle between those 3. Simmons was super impressive in London, but I don't think she'll have a big enough gap off the bike to stay away from Haug and Daron. Flora Duffy tended to struggle on the run in 2022, but she'll definitely be in the mix, and with her focus now on this distance, I'm expecting to run better than she did then. Then Lee, Finley and Byram will all be in contention for the top 5, but it depends how they run on the day. I think Taylor Knibb is the clear favourite to take the win given she's won her last 6 middle distance races, so I've got her in first. And then I think Ashley Gentle will do enough on the bike to stay relevant and drop one of the fastest runs of the day to move through into second. And I think this will generally be the consensus picks for 1 and 2. With Annie Haug not carrying that fatigue from Nice, she could definitely throw a spanner in the works, but I wonder if she'll be fully firing for this distance after an Ironman specific block. I keep going back and forth between Haug and Daron for the last spot on the podium. Daron's run is seriously dangerous, and I think having the extra people in the field compared to Beijing will mean she won't lose as much time on the bike. So I'm going to put Daron in 3rd and Haug in 4th. Then I've got Imogen Simmons in 5th, carrying that form from London, who I may still be underestimating. She may ride away again and build enough of a gap to prove me wrong. I think Duffy will be in the mix, but she's still in the stages of stepping up, and she could be more in contention in Las Vegas once she has a race under her belt. So those are my top 5 picks for Ibiza T100. I've got Taylor Knibb continuing her middle distance dominance and taking her 2nd win of the season. Let me know your picks down below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.